We are nearing 2016 levels of insanity here now. This is our fourth consecutive bad judge's decision or questionable judge's decision in the last four episodes. We've had one questionable decision each episode. The only episode so far that has not had a questionable decision yet is episode one, the first episode. So what crazy and insane bad judge's decision did we get this time? Did we get maybe Lockjaw having a meltdown against Big Dill and Lockjaw somehow wins? Did Aegis control its fight against Fusion, but Fusion won? Nope. In fact, I swear to God, this is the most unpredictable bad judge decision yet. I had no idea this would be a bad judge decision. The thought didn't even cross my mind when I heard that fight would be controversial. But apparently it was. And my God, I debated even talking about Huge versus Hydra because the fight is so unbelievably boring that I'd rather watch paint dry for 10 hours because I think I'd get a bit more enjoyment from watching that. So basically, to make a long story short, Hydra made this new extender that was supposed to cage Huge in. If you ever watched Robot Wars and you've seen something like Tornado versus Razor, where it's kind of like not making sure that the base of the robot doesn't take damage by like just caging the robot in. That's basically what Hydra was doing. It was using it against Huge. And the weird thing was they were comparing it a lot to the extension Bronco used in 2019 against Huge, which was completely different in its own way. The strategies were completely different also. Bronco's plan against Huge was just to flip him, which worked perfectly. And Hydra's plan against Huge was to push him around and control him, which still worked perfectly. So this is once again another controversial decision based on one hit that Huge was able to get. So basically, I'm gonna say that Hydra definitely did not do any damage, or if it did, it didn't do any like perfect damage that would have affected Huge in any way. But basically, Hydra won the decision by just controlling the entire fight. Now, I don't disagree with this decision. I'll talk about my thoughts about the pointing system and how I would point the decision. First up, damage. Huge got a hit on Hydra, but it's not like the hit that Rotator got on Beta, where it was like Rotator actually did visible freaking damage to Beta. No, it just showed some sparks. I doubt the weapon even touched it. It was probably just the very tip of the Huge's spinner that actually was hitting at Hydra's cage. But then I didn't see Hydra do any damage except that one time it used the pulverizer against Huge. So in all honesty, I would rate the decision 3-2 for Hydra and 3-2 for Huge in terms of damage, because while Huge did technically do damage, I wouldn't really call it damage. He probably scraped some paint off. So I feel like I'm being generous giving Huge even a 3-2. I feel like Hydra definitely. Well, the pulverizer didn't do much to Huge clearly, but it's still more visible damage that happened to Huge than it happened to Hydra. But I'm being generous and giving Huge 3-2 damage. As for control, it's an easy 3 points for Hydra. That's not even a competition at that point. The Huge has no control in its robot. It doesn't have any real control in the robot. It's always going to get pushed around, but that's kind of the thing about it, is the biggest way to push it around is to take damage with it. It's kind of like a full body spinner design, except it's a vert and it's nothing like a full body spinner at all. Finally, we have aggression, which is still a very tough topic because aggression is just the freaking most annoying thing ever. But I would give aggression 2-1 in favor of Hydra because Huge, whenever it wasn't being pushed around, it was just running away from Hydra, which is like the complete opposite of aggression. Even if you say, well, civilian, there was no weapon usage in Hydra. Okay, but Huge was running away from Hydra, so it wasn't. There wasn't any real aggression. Huge was losing points more than he was making points. This ends up with a 7-4 decision for Hydra, which is what I'm guessing is the case for how most of the BattleBots judges judged it, because it wasn't a split decision, it was unanimous in all accounts. Every judge voted Hydra. Now, I don't have a problem with this decision. That's not what I'm going to talk about anymore. What I'm going to talk about is that Hydra should have been disqualified, because in like the midway segment of the fight, Hydra pushed Huge into a corner, and the rule for pinning, it was technically a pin. The rule for pinning is that you can only pin for 10 seconds, I believe, or a bit more, 10 to 15 seconds. I'm going to have to take a look back and see what it actually is. But after the 10 seconds, the ref says, hey, that 10 seconds is up or 15 seconds is up. You got to let your opponent go. Hydra let the opponent go by moving an inch away from Huge. And if you look at the width of Hydra's cage, that literally did nothing. That's like if I was using my combat robot lifter, and I was pinning the robot, my opponent, for 10 seconds, and then after 10 seconds I let him go, but I only like moved away from it an inch. I'm basically still there. I'm still basically pinning him. He has nowhere to go. Where is he gonna go? Nowhere. Now, the rules for pinning state that if you are not able to get out from the pinning, and you're not able to unpin, I believe that you will be disqualified, which did not happen, annoyingly enough. Now, if the person pinning the robot said, hey, I'm stuck on the robot, I can't get out of it, I'm sure that they would have done some kind of unstuck thing like they did with Big Dill versus Atom, or Blacksmith versus Quantum. They would have done an separate thing, or they would have taken it to the judges. But they didn't do that. And it wasn't like the ref didn't notice that what Hydra was doing was clearly a smart-ass tactic. Because he kept telling, the referee kept telling, I think his name is Jake, or I don't remember which Waiachi guy had Hydra. I think it's Jake, but I'm not too sure. But the Hydra guys kept saying, hey, I'm not technically pinning him, and he can still move, even though he's like, at best, half a foot away from Huge. But because of Hydra's width and how much it's surrounding Huge, Huge can't really go anywhere. It can't really do anything. Now, this is actually a tactic that a lot more Waiachi robots have used. If you look at Warrior Clan, they used the same tactic against Chomp in 2018, but it was a bit more subtle, and they said they weren't technically pinning, but you could still see what they were trying to do. So this isn't like a new scheme that the Waiachi family has suddenly cooked up. No, this is stuff that they've already done previously. Now, I'm not actually trying to talk about judging scoring right now. I'm talking about the freaking pinning. I feel that robots should be disqualified for this, for what Hydra did. Now, was the attachment Hydra used, is that cheating? No, I don't think it's cheating. I do think it's smart. I like the idea. I think that was really the only way you could really beat Huge, unless you had this like thing that made your flipper go really high, like you had this horn on the top, like the tip of your flipper, like what Bronco tried to do. But so the idea isn't the problem. The cage that Hydra used wasn't the problem. It was the pinning. I feel Hydra should be disqualified for that. And the thing, but he didn't. So I have to ask, what exactly should count as a pin? Because he was clearly still being told to back up, and Hydra still didn't. So I feel that Hydra should have been disqualified for that. I don't think that Hydra wasn't breaking the rules with the extender, the cage. That wasn't the rule breaking. The rule breaking was with the pinning and how much Hydra didn't back up. Now, I'm not a BattleBots expert, so I don't know the full rules, but if I were a ref, I would say that after a pin, you should get at least 5 feet away from your opponent before you start running at them again. But that wasn't what Hydra did. It just kept being right in front of Huge, and Huge couldn't really do anything, and the ref didn't really do anything, and that pisses me off the most. And then what I hate most is that Jake was basically taunting Jonathan, and Jonathan clearly hated that. Jonathan was already pissed off with this. You could see that he was ready to freaking kill someone if you replay the footage and look at how Jonathan was looking. You could see hatred in his eyes. He was wearing a mask, and you could still see the anger seaming through him. That's how angry he was. So yeah, I feel that I found a newfound hatred for Hydra, not because he won, but because that freaking pinning is so goddamn unbelievable. But overall I agree with this decision for the most part. It's technically correct, even though I feel that Hydra should have been disqualified. If Hydra at least unpinned him, I don't think I'd even be talking about this judge's decision. This video isn't really about the judge's decision. This is more about the pinning problem about this fight. So that's about it. See ya.